Glass Union is a new band that is just formed. The band's from pretty much a fair few locations around the world. One place being Italy, another place being the USA, and then lastly Canada. So not sure how they really got together from being all over the place, but on their Facebook site, that is where they kind of say they're from. On their Facebook site, they've labeled themselves as hard rock, but if you look on a multitude of other websites that talk about this band, they label them as progressive metal. Now, I'd probably say they are kind of progressive metal instead of hard rock, because hard rock, the kind of structure of things are a little bit basic and things like that. But as for Last Union and this album, the songs are definitely got a lot of differentials about each track, and there's loads of different structures and everything, and different components and parts to each song. So I definitely would kind of call it progressive, not just a hard rock. I think that's a bit simple for the band. Um, just quickly discussing, this is the first album, as I said. It's called 12, and the band is fronted by a female vocalist. The band does have a lead guitarist who actually does do solos, so we are going to be getting that, which is a great thing. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the sum up. Let's get into the first track, which is called Most Beautiful Day. Most Beautiful Day starts with pretty aggressive, heavy drumming, alone by itself, and then after a few seconds, the rest of the band comes in after the introduction from the blistering drums. And as the rest of the band comes in, it doesn't really follow that blistering aggressiveness that the drums gave us, but it kind of just goes into a very mellow, very laid back sound. It's not aggressive, it's not either melodic, it's basically just a really laid back, kind of fantasy, bright sounding intro for the song. So just quite basic, quite bright in sound. It's quite relaxing just because it is so kind of laid back and bright. It's really not in your face or aggressive in the slightest. As the vocalist comes in for your first verse, she's singing this a typical kind of tone and everything, but the problem with this first verse is basically the backing vocals. So what you have is the female singer just kind of singing along at mid-tempo kind of pace and everything, mid-range. But underneath her is a male vocalist that is singing something completely different, as well as out of time and everything. So you've got these two vocalists both singing something different and both at different bloody times, both at near enough the same kind of volume, which makes it extremely messy. I don't like it. I've heard the song a fair few times, but every time I just have the exact same opinion as the male vocalist is just messing up absolutely everything because he muffles the female whose volume is slightly louder because he's groaning on in the background and everything, doing his thing. It kind of pulls me away from kind of focusing on her. Then trying to focus on him, I'm kind of lost because I'm hearing the female also. So I can't focus on either one, and I can't distinguish either one because each one is muffling the other person and trying to do their own thing. So it just kind of leaves your head being really lost and confused. So that's a bit of a pain in the backside because of that, and it completely wrecks it. So that's starting off really terrible. But as you get to the pre-chorus, um, the male backs out completely, and the female gets into a lot more of a kind of soaring delivery. So she holds on to her words a bit more, and the tone she's using is really nice. She has an amazing tone on her voice. It's nothing like oh, what's the band? Unleash the Archers. She doesn't have anything like that, or Hailstorm. She doesn't have that type of voice. It's definitely more in the line of Amaranthi with a bit of Evanescence kind of shoved in there. She's kind of in between that point. She's got definitely a bit of brightness and a bit of edge to her, but it's definitely got a very melodic undertow to her. So that's kind of how it is. As the pre-chorus kind of keeps going on, she gets to points where her voice just completely soars, and it's just so bright and it's really uplifting, and the voice is just so beautiful, and the note is so high and well executed. It's not high to piercing; it's just high and very, very warm and open in tone. So it sounds really nice whenever she does these amazing soars with her voice. Every single time, it's just absolutely amazing to witness and hear. The chorus comes in and she takes a way more laid back tone to it. Just this day is beautiful, and she's just so kind of laid back, really relaxed about the delivery of it. The second verse is a lot better than the first verse, though, where they definitely kind of change it up. You don't get the male vocalist in the slightest; he's just not there at all, and it's a lot more aggressive. So the backing music, they're doing a bit more of a chugging riff, but as I've said, their sound is quite warm and open. So even though they're chugging, the tone that they're using kind of softens everything that they do. And then the female is singing in a lot more of that kind of shrieking, piercing tone. But again, as I've mentioned, her voice definitely has that melodic undertow to her. So even though she's kind of belting it out a bit more in a high pitch, she has that softening blow just to kind of dampen and open the sound up, so it's not too piercing. And this more kind of energy bass and her voice being in the higher register, her voice definitely works better here. So it's definitely a lot better to hear and a lot more interesting and engaging with you. And it is kind of high energy, but not overly high. So it's nothing that which you can really kind of really get up and hyper about. It's still quite relaxing, but because it's kind of a bit more loud and sharp, it kind of just keeps you more awake than what we kind of had. Then you get the pre-chorus again, and she does the typical thing with the saw near the end, which sounds unbelievable. Same chorus, but after that, she gets onto a way more kind of, her voice is going fluid and it's kind of flowing with her kind of highs, and then she brings it back down, but then it goes right back up again. So she's definitely kind of going up and down with the tones and the high register, and it sounds really nice. After that, you get the solo, which comes in, and it sounds like it's going to be a soaring solo, beautiful, warm, crystallized tone and everything, and it sounds incredible. And it just comes in, and the holds and the soar and the tone and everything just sounds so unbelievable. And it lasts about a few seconds, and the female comes in, and he's basically out, which is extremely disappointing. As a vocalist comes in, he is still kind of going. It's kind of just like hammer on, pull off type of thing he's doing. So he's just and then eventually fades out. So extremely disappointing. The male vocalist comes back in by himself, and then it goes back to the chorus. The chorus is slightly changed up. You get a bit more of a lead throughout the last chorus, and then you also get a few things in the way of a backing voice, but it's kind of the female who does it, and it's not overly used. So basically, when she backs out, her backing voice kind of comes in to fill the kind of gap, but it's a bit faded, so it's not up front at all. So the final chorus is done pretty well, but overall, it is a good song. The voice is great. The solo for what you got started off amazing, but you definitely kind of cut it short and just kind of leaves you hanging just wanting more, which is kind of bad. The second verse was really good, but that first verse was pretty atrocious, just a complete mess. The intro, because it was quite open and fantasy sounding, it wasn't anything that interesting either. So overall, you had some pretty bad parts, and then at other points you had some pretty great parts. And the song does keep changing things up a bit. You have the two different verses, you have a different chorus and everything, and then after the second chorus, you have a bit of a different stare. You do get the bit of a solo. So it's not that bad, but it's not overly great. So let's just move on and get into the next track, which is called President Evil. So the intro to this song starts a lot more kind of heavy compared to the last song. Again, the tone they use kind of keeps softening the blow of whatever they kind of are doing, but what they are playing is definitely in a more kind of heavier kind of area with a bit more aggression. As we get to the verse, you notice that this song is featuring a special guest, which is James LaBrie, the lead singer of Dream Theater, and he starts the main riff off. So the special guest is basically starting off the song. Um, he comes in, and I'm sure a lot of you know how he kind of sounds. He has a really amazing voice and everything. Um, Definitely not a deep voice or anything. He's definitely kind of more situated to the kind of higher register than the low register type of thing. Kind of similar with the female. She's definitely kind of more in that kind of higher register, but they have a warmness to their voice as well. So he has a lot in common with the actual main vocalist of this band. So kind of fits in quite well. As he comes in though, the band kind of cuts out, and it's just the kind of drumming going along with him and everything. Which kind of takes that kind of fantasy vibe out of it because the guitars aren't really putting that tone in. It's basically just the voice and the drum, so the entire kind of unique sound that's going with them kind of disappears. The guitars come in every now and then. It's basically just the old kind of dun da chug thing, and then you get to the chorus, and the rest of the band comes in, and he does a bit of holds and everything. Then he does a bit of a kind of groovy kind of part where it sounds quite nice. The way his voice kind of flows through it with this groove. And you kind of notice through the chorus as well, it's all still James. So you're wondering, well, when's the actual vocalist going to come in? Because he's just a kind of special guest and everything, and they're only supposed to take a certain part of the song. You kind of hear the actual vocalist near the end of the chorus, and it's quite difficult. I didn't even notice it, so they both actually sound quite similar, which I don't know if that's a good thing or kind of being rude. But if you watch the music video, you do see the actual vocalist singing along, and then you can kind of actually hear, oh yeah, I kind of hear the kind of female voice under there. But James is actually the one on top. He's leading the whole thing, not the actual vocalist. So for the end of the chorus, she does kind of sing underneath him and everything, just giving it a bit more of an emphasis on the overall voice, but you can barely hear her. So gets to the end, and they do kind of actually repeat the chorus straight after the chorus, which is a little weird. And it's still led by James, and then near the end, the female does kind of come in, but she's overrun by James, so she's just the backing singer in her own band. Very weird. The second verse again is completely different to the first verse, so it's good that they're actually no verse is the same. They always change it, it seems. Although this is only the second track, so that may not be the case. Who knows? I obviously do, because I've heard it. But yes, he's still there, and it's really kind of weird. So he's again still being the lead vocalist of this song and leading the second verse. The second verse kind of follows what the first song did. The guitars are all kind of present. It's a lot kind of heavier and a lot more energetic. So the song kind of starts off with a bit of a kind of simple groove, and then the second verse it's a bit more kind of energy based. Then you get back to the chorus, which again is all the same. Then after the chorus, he's still leading. The main vocalist still hasn't really come in, and we get a long solo. It is a lot longer. It's a fairly long solo. There's a bit of shred to it. There's a bit of a musical point. Near the end, he's using the whammy. It's basically kind of just hitting on the whammy. It's not a whammy pull or a whammy bend type of thing. It's just kind of tapping on the whammy and everything, just to make the kind of noise a bit whiny. And in other places, it's kind of holds, but it's not like the first song where it started, where the hold soared. It's basically just a simple hold. And that's what the majority of the solo is. It's just a lot of kind of holds, but it's not soaring, which makes it kind of slow and easy, but nothing too overly kind of exciting and pleasing to the ears. It just kind of holds. The shreddy part is just a shreddy part, just for the sake of it. There's nothing too special about it. The kind of whammy hit is a little interesting, but overall it is a long solo and it's not bad, but it's not overly exciting either. And then James just finishes the song. It doesn't go back to the chorus. It basically is just the outro of the song, and he's just kind of repeating the similar kind of line. So he has a great voice. The chorus has good rhythm to it. The second verse, I like the more kind of added aggression. I like that the solo is a lot longer, even though it's not overly interesting. I like the intro. The intro was very kind of bombastic for what their tone can really provide them with. But I just find it weird that the special guest is the lead vocalist, and as for their vocalist, she is so in the background that you cannot tell she's there. It's like they put her in because it's like, well, she is our main vocalist, so we have to put her in there, but let's just kind of keep her out because she's embarrassing, a complete embarrassment. We want it to be James. This entire song is James. He is our lead vocalist for this. It's like, well, that's not the case. When you use a special guest, it's supposed to basically just give a bit of a differential to the album. So if you have a special guest who's a vocalist, it's basically just to give the song a bit more of a kind of range. Where if you look at Orion's song with Elise Reed, she obviously adds a kind of female sound to the role. But the male vocalist is the one who pretty much controls it, and they both harmonize together. So both of them get equal kind of roles, and she just adds to the song, giving their sound, and you still hear what the lead vocalist is like, which just kind of opens up more possibilities. As for this, it's basically you don't hear what the female's like. You don't hear what their sound is. It's just the band with a whole new singer. You have no idea what they sound like with the female. And I find that really odd because that's not what you're supposed to be doing with a special guest. It's supposed to basically show the band, but show a different take. So if you like James LaBrie and you hear, oh, James LaBrie's in this band, why don't you go give it a listen? They go, I like James LaBrie, let's give it a listen. And you're supposed to hear what you came to hear, which is James LaBrie, but the band is supposed to show as a whole what they are. Also give you what you originally came for, which was to hear the singer you liked, because you didn't know what Last Union was. But here it's basically just like, it's James LaBrie, it's his song with his backing band. You don't get the vocalist, you have no idea what she's like. I think it's kind of stupid in my opinion, but let's just move on to the next song, Hardest Way. Hardest Way starts off a little kind of heavy for the first few seconds. Sounds like it's going to be heavy. It's just dun 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 dun, just all that kind of heavy chugging and everything. But then the song takes a bit of a change, and it gets into kind of a melody type of thing. And you have the lead guitarist just doing this really beautiful melody. It sounds really, really nice. When I first kind of heard this on my first listen, I was a little worried because it just sounded a little kind of girly, in my opinion. It was very kind of just pretty, kind of the beautiful kind of thing. And I was just like, oh, I want something a bit more aggressive. And now that I've kind of gotten kind of used to it and kind of accepted it, it is a nice sound. That's just the case. It is a nice lead. And it has some great holds and places and a great melody. It sounds really nice. As it comes to the first verse, we're back with our actual singer, so they're not embarrassed by her anymore, and they actually give her a rollback. The band kind of just leaves. You just get the simplest of guitars, the simplest of drums and everything. It's really laid back as she does, a really soothing voice. It's not overly melodic where everything is just so depressing. Her voice is obviously got that beautiful tone to it, and it's not operatic or anything. She's just singing, and it's very angelic. It's so nice, her voice. And then with the really subtle, warm undertow with the music underneath her, it's just such a nice warm sound that is being portrayed. Again, when I first heard it, I didn't really accept it. I just thought this is just boring, too melodic. I want something aggressive. But now that I've kind of gotten into it and again accepted it, I just accept it for what it is. It's just a really nice, warm verse with a great voice. About halfway through the verse, the guitars take a bit more of a drastic approach. Only just adding a bit more in the way of energy, just to kind of build it up. When you get to the chorus, again, it's just kind of the melodic kind of flow and everything. Her voice goes a bit higher, but she's definitely staying kind of melodic and quiet and everything. She's not going to blistering highs. It's basically just a high tone, but she's doing it really kind of quiet and laid back and everything. As you get into the second verse, this is where it gets interesting because it gets pretty aggressive. The guitars are doing the heavy chugs and everything. Again, the tone they use kind of gives it a bit of a dampening effect. And then the vocalist, her voice is a bit more kind of on the attack, a bit kind of more raspy, a bit more ferocious. But as her voice being the kind of angelic sound it is and everything, it's still a very nice sound. She's just putting a bit more of an attack and sharpness into the delivery with that kind of more aggressive tone and everything, because they're playing further up the neck and doing some heavy chords and everything with the tone that they use, and definitely kind of opens what they're doing up a bit just to give it a bit of warmth. So that is definitely good because now we've got something way more energetic. But as we go back to our chorus and everything, it's same chorus, so it goes back to the kind of melody and laid backness and everything. The solo kind of has a build to it. He does some very kind of low register holds and everything, just to start the build up. A bit of a whammy pull and everything, and everything's kind of low bends and everything, and then eventually it kind of goes up and into the more kind of loudness of the solo as it begins. And again, it doesn't have the great uniqueness of that first solo that was cut off really quickly. Of it just opens up into massive, amazing soars and tone. It does open up to a nice tone, and it does have soars, but the soars are not to the high points that you particularly kind of are looking for. They are high points, and he does have a good melody, and he does have a soar near the end of the solo where it's like, oh, that's a great soar and a great melody, and it sounds beautiful, and then he shuts it off. It's like, you dick. So that's a little annoying again. But it's definitely better than the previous track. It's getting better. The chorus this time round is now different. It's the same thing, but you get some male vocals. You also, I forgot to mention, you get male vocals in the first verse. So as she's singing melodically, you get the male vocalist. They're kind of saying something different and in a different time. Because he's in the background and everything, and she's taken so long to say her things, it works a lot better. And that kind of low registered male voice singing underneath actually sounds amazing. And it's the same in the chorus. He's kind of low register and everything, and she's opened up so much that his little bits in between, it doesn't take away from her voice and everything. And you get some leads from the guitars and everything, so you get good leads in the high tones and everything, and then you've got the male backing vocalist, and then her being really open. So it just kind of brings a bit more to that chorus, and it sounds pretty nice. So let's get into the next track, which is called Purple Angels. Purple Angels starts heavy and pretty much remains heavy throughout the whole song. So this is our heaviest track on the album so far. So it starts heavy and everything for the intro. As it gets to the verse and the female vocalist comes in, she's definitely got a bit more power in her delivery and everything. The band at times does cut out in the riff, so it's basically just her singing, and they come in with the aggressive chugs every now and then. The band. It's not spaced out drastically. It's just the odd few seconds of her just by herself with a drum beat, and then the guitars in with the heaviness type of thing, and then back out again, and then back in again, and that's how the verse kind of goes and everything. She's singing when she does the more kind of heaviness, it's basically just more of a high delivery she does. It's not the fluid stuff. It's not deep or anything. It's just kind of high, sharp delivery. And the tone is a bit kind of more aggressive and fat, but it still has that kind of open warmth to it. The pre-chorus, she just kind of keeps saying the same thing over and over again, and then it's just kind of strums on the guitar leading into the actual chorus, which opens the sound up a bit. Her voice, she kind of just flows with the words she's saying, and then it parts. She goes into her high soul registers that again she's good at, and it sounds great when she ever gets to that really nice high soul part. The male vocalist again is kind of underneath as she does this, so as she gets to the high point, he's kind of interweaved in there again. Still nothing like that first track where they're both kind of the same pitch doing all sorts of different things, and no one's really kind of opened up so one can take a bit of a lead while they're open. They're all just very contracted and just muddled. Here again it works. Second verse, as per usual, is different. The band don't really kind of cut out at all. They're always present. The second chorus remains exactly the same. After the chorus, you get actually an acoustic part with the vocalist, so the acoustics come out and everything gets quite mellow. And then the solo comes in, which doesn't follow that line. The solo is actually, I think, the most aggressive in solos we get. It's a very fluid, aggressive solo, so there's definitely a lot of fluidity in what he's actually doing. Nothing is basically just straight to a point of what he's doing. The sound is very kind of bubbly as it goes along, but it's got a very sharp attack to it. And he just slides and holds and everything, but because everything is so kind of sharp and a little piercing, but it's got that kind of bubbly kind of effect that he's put into it and everything, and is playing to make it quite fluid. It's got some pretty decent sounds to it, and different interesting holds and everything, and interesting sound and attack. I think he gets holds at some parts, and then at other parts he gets that bit of shred. The chorus for the last time is I think pretty much the same thing, but the outro is just the lead vocalist saying "Purple Angels." Sounds like she's harmonized it with herself, because it sounds like there's multi layers to her voice, and then the guitarist underneath her just constantly saying "Purple Angels." He's shredding ballistically away underneath that, and then nearer to the end of when they're about to pack it in, he goes to the holds and everything, and then just the last kind of hold that kind of bends out to fade it out of the song, finishing it up. And that leads us into the next track, The Best of Magic. The Best of Magic is the most melodic track of the album, and it's probably maybe my least favorite track. It kind of starts out not with the band, but other instruments kind of just slowly building up until the band starts, and then when the band starts, you get the typical kind of thing that The Hardest Way did, which is you have a lead, which kind of sounds nice, but it's definitely kind of a lot more kind of fantasy sounding. Hardest Way, it was a very nice sounding lead melody that he was doing, but in The Best of Magic, his lead that he's doing is just screaming fantasy and magical, and it really sounds. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound pretty and beautiful, even though the sound is kind of nice. It's just the kind of style it's going with is not really clicking. As the vocalist comes in, there is pretty much nothing. Like in the hardest way, there was something to go with her voice and bring it up. But here, her voice is just so melodic, kind of Evanescent style, and there is nothing there of a band. It's basically just drums, maybe bass. But if not, then it's basically just drums, and it just makes it sound just so very bleak. And with her very laid back singing, it's a bit bland. Um, Near the end of the chorus, though, I mean the verse, you start getting a bit of the band coming in with just the kind of chugging that just leads you into the chorus. The chorus, because it's like "Welcome to the best of magic," um, already sounds extremely cheesy and cringy, and the sound's just open, and then her kind of just singing in this kind of fantasy style and everything with her bright voice and everything. And then near the end, she gets a bit of a brightness, but it's not the kind of powerful brightness. She just kind of goes bright with her kind of mid tone. So it sounds nice, her tone and everything, but it's just so real cheesiness, fantasy. Just I don't really like this massive amount of fantasy and the cheesiness of the lyrics and everything. So still not clicking. The second verse, on the other hand, is actually pretty damn good. It does what The Hardest Way did, which you could say is kind of formulaic of them doing this melody kind type of style, because so far it's basically just copying The Hardest Way, just not as good as The Hardest Way, because that actually was done really well. But because it's copying, as you could probably suggest and tell, it goes heavy. So this verse is now heavy with the guitars doing all the kind of deep chugs and everything, but with that open sound to dampen that aggression. And then her voice is definitely a bit more on the attack, and it sounds good. But then you get the problem of it getting back to the chorus, which again, it's the same chorus, so it doesn't work. Then after that, we get a repeat of what happened on the previous track, which is what happened before the solo. So as you can now tell, it goes acoustic. So again, a little formulaic, but it's nice to obviously keep getting these changes. So it goes kind of acoustic, and it's not overly bad. But with how fantasy and laid back the song has been, it definitely isn't as good as what we had in Purple Angels, which was a lot heaviness and then an acoustic, which was two vastly different things. But this is basically just being so laid back, and now we just get acoustic, which doesn't make it as standing out and have as much of an impact. So we get that, and then as the solo comes in, the solo is actually really nice. It has the beautiful tone. It has some good source and good holds, and it just goes at a really nice pace and everything. At times, he does the few hammer-on pull-offs. I think there's a whammy in there at some point and everything. It had a bit of shred, but mostly it's basically just a laid-back, really nice tone that he's doing. It's laid back. He has a nice tone. He's doing some simple kind of holds and being fluid with it and everything. It just kind of sounds nice. It's not again these massive soars that I really want him to really push to, but it's a nice sounding solo, which is a shame seeing that the song isn't really doing it. And you get back to the chorus, which I don't think they really changed that much. As he comes out of the solo, though, he does kind of do the melody of the song, and after such a pretty a nice solo, that cheesy intro that he did with that lead that didn't really work for me kind of works a bit better here, because it's coming off of the nice melodic solo, then it goes into the kind of lead, which sounds a bit fantasy, but it just kind of makes it work well, because it kind of complements the solo and the solo complements it. So it works actually better here. But as it gets into the chorus and everything, which kind of follows that same tone, but the lead's kind of took out a bit, but it has that same melody and vibe to it. Um, it helps it a little, but it's still kind of cheesy. So it doesn't really do much. But coming off of that solo, it definitely kind of helps you take in that stuff. But obviously, you've got the rest of the song, and it's still basically not saving it. It basically just makes it a bit more tolerable because the solo just kind of, I don't know why, it just helps. So that's that for that track. Now, the next track is supposed to be Taken, but it's a radio edit, so it lasts about 4 minutes. But the last track on the album, you have Taken, the actual version, which is like 8 minutes. So I'm not even going to bother with that. I've deleted it. I want to listen to the proper version, not the radio version. So we're going to miss that, and we'll cover the proper version of it, not the fake. And we'll go to 18 Euphoria. I think that's how you pronounce it, at least. So 18 Euphoria is my girlfriend's favourite song, actually, which doesn't mean anything, really. It's just her favourite. As for me, it's a track that's 3 minutes, 12 seconds. It's basically got a sound, a tone, and a sound level to it, and then it's quite consistent. So it basically just has the one sound, and then it kind of just is constantly consistent. It's the mid energy that they usually go for because, as I've stated, they don't really do high gain aggressive energy, and it's not a melody or anything. So basically, just off the gate, it is that mid range kind of open, high sounding, but again warm tone that they've got going. As the vocalist comes in, she doesn't have that type of Izzy Hale or Britney Slays type of aggression to her voice, so it's definitely more of the kind of high, kind of sharp pierce attack that she's singing with here. And the beat of it's quite nice because they're trying to make it high energy, so the way the song is kind of flowing here is a bit more of that uplifting thing, but because it's still quite fantasy and crystallized kind of sound, it's still not really anything that you really kind of jump up with. It's something where if you just had a girl over and you just kind of wanted to just kind of slowly just kind of I don't know, spin with each other and things, this song will basically actually do that for you. It's something where you like pounding, head banging type of thing. It's something where you can just kind of just twist your hips at, nothing that aggressive, and a girl would enjoy it. It's a song you can get up and kind of twist to, but not really do any kind of head bang or anything like that. So the chorus that comes up doesn't really change it up much. The chorus kind of blends with the verse. There is a slight change, but it's basically just the slightest of change to just tell you this is the chorus, but it's nothing that grand. The good part is the second verse, which is my girlfriend's favourite part, and pretty much mine as well, because the lead vocalist goes to an even higher kind of register, and again, her voice really suits these high registers and high soars that she goes to. So when she's doing this, it's just amazing just to hear such an incredible voice do these really nice kind of tones that she can do. She's great at doing these tones. It's really well done. And I don't think she leads basically back into the chorus. It leads into basically a lead, but it's not exactly a solo. It's just a lead kind of interlude that goes into the acoustic type of thing that they have kind of been doing in previous tracks, where everything just kind of strips down to bare bone basic and you just get simple drums, simple kind of bass, and just kind of simple acoustic with the mellow voice. And as that progresses, you get to a point where they strip it even further back and everything just gets really, really mellow. But after that, there's not a solo, it just goes back into the chorus. and then the solo actually is what finishes the song. So he starts with loads of whammying on the whammy bar, just going ballistic on the whammy. It's one of the shreddier ones, so it's mostly all shred really. It's just he starts with the hold leading into just constant wailing at the whammy, then just to a lot of shred. The female vocalist is heard in the background, just saying this one word over and over and over again, but she's right in the background as the solo is just kind of speeding its way through. And that is basically it. So it's got energy, but there's not a lot to it, unlike other tracks where it's just like you get a lot on offer. It's just a very simple song that gives you a fair bit of energy as far as Last Union can really go to. And that's pretty much all 18 Euphoria is. So let's now get into the next track, A Place in Heaven.
Bring this up to the promised land, to the promised land. Carry the weight, shine the light, lead the faithful. You carry on through the dust and rain. Be what you are, feel the good, you're not pitiful.
So Place in Heaven starts with kind of acoustic guitars and everything, and it's sounding extremely nice. So it's just nice acoustic and everything. It's quite cheerful, not kind of brooding and dark. And then the rest of the band come in and put the actual electric guitars in, and it starts going into the verse. And you notice that James LaBrie is yet again back, which is kind of odd, seeing that we've already kind of had a whole song dedicated to this person who is not in this band, but had a whole song to himself. So he's back again here. So for pretty much the entire verse, he is there the whole time. And as far as his voice goes, it's incredible. His voice sounds really nice. It has great flow to it and everything. The band underneath, you have one guitar going while the other guitar kind of has a fade, and then at times you'll have both guitars going, and then one guitar will back out, giving you just that one guitar tone sound. And the pre-chorus, everyone's kind of there, and it's basically just kind of crawling along into the chorus. And James is still basically in the whole chorus. There is nothing from the female. Before you got the female in the second half of the chorus, underneath James, as the backing vocalist, which is weird. And you could barely hear her, but in this song, she is non-existent for the whole 5 minutes, 22 seconds. The lead singer is not in this song. So it's not really a proper Last Union song because it doesn't actually feature the vocalist. It features James LaBrie, but he's not in the band, so this is not the sound of the band and how it sounds vocally. It's just not the case. So it's very kind of weird because like it's a good song. I like James LaBrie. The music is all fine. It's a good song, but I don't know if I can really appreciate it because I want to hear what the band is. And when they incorporate James LaBrie into a whole song, I'm not getting what the band is because I'm missing a vocalist. I'm getting James LaBrie as well as Last Union, or part of Last Union, because Last Union is supposed to also contain a vocalist. But for some reason, they've shunted her aside yet again. Maybe they don't like her. So, very unusual, seeing that she is a fantastic vocalist. And this song has great melodies to it and everything, and I think her voice would really work well with the song, but I don't have her in this song, so I have no idea how she would sound in this song in her own band, because she's not in it for this song, as well as pretty much President Evil. It's ridiculous. But the chorus, anyway, it opens up, it sounds fantastic. His voice, again, it sounds amazing. The verse this time is pretty much exactly the same as the first verse, and you get back to the chorus. After that chorus, you do get a solo. The solo is more of a melody. You do get a shreddy part, and then as he finishes the solo, it goes to even more of a melodic style. It's one of the nicer sounding melodics on the album. And when he finishes it up, it's basically James LaBrie with the typical, what's getting typical of Last Union at least, acoustic stuff. And then he kind of flows around with that for a while, and then they kind of change it up, but it's still quite acoustic based. And then it just starts building, and then it leads into another solo, which is now a heavy version solo, which has a lot of kind of whammy tricks and everything, a bit of shred and everything, a lot more high energy compared to the previous one, which had a tiny bit of shred but was basically kind of melody. So it's good to get two completely different solos in the one song. That is really nice. And then you kind of after that solo get the chorus, but the start of it is done acoustically, and then as it kind of starts going, eventually it goes back to what we get from the typical chorus. So we get two completely different solos, both of them extremely good. The lead vocals are amazing. We get a lot of different takes of the vocals underneath the acoustic and the acoustic version of the last chorus for the start, and then the same kind of chorus. And his voice obviously keeps changing kind of tempos to just be kind of open, but then it kind of gets into a bit more of a groove, back to the openness in verses. And then the chorus, it gets really open and just really kind of nice. And obviously for the acoustic, he has to do something completely different. So everything is great. It's just I have a problem with him being there for the whole song. I want to hear what the actual vocalist of Last Union can do. And I even have more problems with James LaBrie, but I will basically get into that later on. So let's get into the next track now, Ghostwriter. Hopefully the lead bloody singer comes back. So Ghostwriter is again one of them simply done songs. It's only 2 minutes 39, so it's pretty damn short. But it basically just has a style to it, and they just basically keep following that thing and style. So it's one of the heavier ones, and then it actually does have the actual vocalist, luckily. But as it starts off, it just kind of starts immediately, just in basically the most bombastic way Last Union can really do. The intro is just kind of going along with that kind of heavy tone, as heavy as they can really get with it. And then on occasions, the whole band come in to do a kind of deep sounding kind of run together, just to get that kind of deep, thick, fast sounding run, because all of them come together to just make the sound thicker. And then they just kind of run that through a bit quick. So when that kind of happens at times throughout this song, that does kind of sound pretty cool and nice. When the vocalist comes in, she's immediately in that kind of, again, higher register, a lot more on the kind of attack, raspy type of thing for her vocals. And that's basically just how the song goes. The song musically is still kind of going the same way as the intro is going. Her voice kind of plays in that way in the chorus. In the chorus, the band kind of open the sound up a bit, but it's still kind of full of things and still has the kind of run thing that they do together. And her voice kind of goes from kind of bright to up to sharp, then down to bright, then up to sharp. And that's kind of how they changed the chorus. And then again, the verse is kind of the same thing. So not a lot really going on. It's just one of these high energy things just to kind of take you out, maybe from the progressiveness of the previous songs, where the songs kind of keep changing from melodies to kind of heavies down to melodies to acoustic and everything. And because it kind of keeps following with previous songs being a bit kind of melodic and open and everything, just give you something a little bit heavier but still in the similar style. So I guess they're just trying to keep a bit of energy up, so you don't just get a bit too relaxed and then just kind of want to fall asleep or something like that, maybe. The solo pretty much is the only other difference, so we'll just jump straight into the solo. The solo starts off musically, not beautifully musically. It's basically just doing some kind of simple hauls and everything, and then he starts kind of building speed, and then he just kind of keeps building and building and building and building and building, and that's pretty much as far as the solo really goes. It does sound nice, the tone and everything he has, but the solo's not got a lot really going on with it. As the vocalist kind of comes back in after he's done with the solo, it's the chorus, but done differently, because the guitar's doing kind of that run with the whole band and everything completely with the chorus, so it's not got that kind of really open, bright sound. It's got a lot more of a kind of deeper and a bit thicker kind of tone to it as it kind of speeds through it. It sounds quite fast. I don't know if it really is fast, but that's kind of how it is. And then the song basically just cuts off as the chorus is finished, and it's just cut out. And that's pretty much the song, quite basic, but a high energy one. Next track we have is Limousine. So Limousine is again just a short track at 2 minutes, 43 seconds. Again, we actually have the lead vocalist, which is a great thing. This song starts out with the lead guitar doing an actual lead tone. So it sounds really nice, and because the tone they kind of have is that really kind of open, high, warm sound, it sounds really nice. The tone he's got, the play he's doing is just really nice. As it starts, though, it's basically just him and then kind of an electronic sound underneath, but that doesn't really last, because the band eventually comes in and just kind of take that completely out. And the lead just kind of keeps going on, and it's just a very powerful musical lead that he has. Then you get to the verse, which was in the clip that came off of that lead, so you did kind of hear that lead. So that was kind of it. And as the verse comes in, that lead disappears, and then the band's just kind of going along in the background, and then the female sings some lines, and you get some of that male vocals in between her singing, just kind of faded in the background. And that's kind of how it goes to the chorus. The chorus, there's no male backing. It's all the female. The sound just kind of opens up a bit more. And after that chorus, you get that lead back again. And it sounds amazing. The verse, again, same. But as for the chorus, this time round, the chorus actually has that lead that was in the intro. So it sounds pretty incredible. And then after the chorus, the lead just kind of keeps going on, and then it gets to that typical kind of acoustic thing that they have. And yeah, not much to it. It's just that acoustic sound again. Then the lead kind of comes back, but it's not a solo. It's just some kind of other kind of lead tone he has. Then it's back to the chorus with the lead over the top. So there is actually no solo, just that nice lead that kind of persists kind of through the song, and then at one point we get a different lead, but it's not a lead solo. It's basically just another kind of lead melody interlude that he really has. So it's got a nice lead to it, and then the verses with the male and the female does kind of sound nice and everything, but it's not got anything overly special about it, apart from that kind of lead, but that is kind of forgettable when you don't really have a solo in the song to really go with it. So it's alright, pretty good, but nothing amazing, really. So that's it for this track. Let's get to the next one, Back in the Shadow. So Back in the Shadow is 5 minutes 23. So now we're back to our kind of longish type of songs. And this is going to be a difficult one to kind of explain because there is so much going on in this track that I think I've forgotten a fair bit of it already. And I've listened to it twice through just right now. And I think I've already gone and forgotten half of it. So this is a really good track because it's just absolutely stuffed with things. It starts out at its kind of mid-range kind of tone and tempo and things, and then it starts kind of building up into kind of the more kind of aggressiveness of Last Union. As the female comes in for that verse, she's on that high pitch kind of gnarly attack that she does, but it still has a nice warmth and beauty to it and everything. But it's definitely up in her high kind of register vocal delivery. As it gets to the pre-chorus, you get more kind of a fatter kind of sound from the overall band, doing a bit more of chugs and everything. Just to just give it a bit more of a heaviness that leads into the chorus. The chorus actually isn't that good. It's basically just her saying back in the shadow, back in the shadow, back in the shadow, back in the shadow, and she just keeps saying it over and over and over and over again. And it's not a nice tone that she's really using, it's just back in the shadow, and she just holds it for ages, and it's quite dull because she's not using any great saws or anything to kind of get this repetition to at least be a bit interesting. It's just quite a bland delivery of a very repetitive chorus. But then after this, we get our first solo. I didn't say we get the solo, I say the first solo because there's about 4 or 5 in this song. That is right, 4 or bloody 5. I can't remember. But the first solo, I can't remember how this one goes. Holy hell. The first solo, I believe, is nothing flashy. It's kind of the mid-range. It's got the nice kind of melody to it. That is basically all it's really there for. And then as it goes back to the verse, it's only different with the vocal delivery, which is basically to her kind of typical tone. And that is basically it, just a typical tone. And so not the saws or higher register, it's basically just her typical tone. You get the same pre-chorus, same chorus, and then after that we get our second solo, which has a bit more of a melody to it, and then we get to that acoustic piano type of thing. And it sounds rather nice, it's a good change of pace. Then we get our next solo, which kind of carries on that melody, and it sounds absolutely beautiful. And it's just got great hold, and it soars, and it sounds incredible. Then it kind of comes back to the vocalist with a bit of the lead going on and everything, I think. And it's kind of melodic, but all the kind of guitars and everything are still kind of there, but it's just beautiful, I should say. So it's just a mid-range kind of Last Union sound that they got going, but everything sounds really, really nice. And then that leads into another solo, which follows in line with that, and it just has the more kind of, not the acoustic melody things, but the kind of beauty melodic solo. So this one is the most beautiful part. Then the song starts getting more heavy, and then the solo that comes after that is more of the aggressive side of solo. Although this solo kind of ties in with the rest of the band as they finish the song. So it does start off by himself, but then he kind of does fade out, and then the rest of the band come in with a vocalist. But then his solo kind of keeps coming back and everything, so I will kind of say it is yet again another one, because it is not just kind of leads for the sake of leads. He is doing something of quite interest. It's more of the attack and the shred and just being really interesting type of deal. So many solos, so many great sounds. We get the heavy aggressiveness, the chorus blows, which is very unfortunate. And then we get the kind of acoustic side. Then we've got the mid-tempo solo, then we've got the more kind of laid-back solo, then we've got the very melodic solo, then we've got the beautiful solo, then we have the aggressive solo, then we have the acousticness of her voice, then we have the prettiness of her voice, and we have the attacking of her voice. The song is packed, and it's just an incredible song, and definitely one of the best, if not the best, unless the next track, which is called Taken, may be the best. Who knows until we get into it. So Taken is the last track on the album. It is the full version of that radio edit that I completely missed because it was only 4 minutes, and this is 8 minutes, 12 seconds. So I'm not going to listen to a song twice, one just being the lesser version of the other one. I'll just listen to the proper one. So here we are with the song Taken. Now, this has a pretty long introduction, and because it's 8 minutes 12, you can basically say it's going for the grand introduction for the kind of grand song at the end of the album. So the band kind of just goes in mid-tempo range, nothing aggressive, nothing melodic or anything. You begin to get a lead, and the lead guitar kind of goes on for a while. I wouldn't really call it a solo because it's not doing much. You may take it as one. I just kind of call it just kind of a lead kind of interlude. This is basically just kind of going for a fair while, just to give a bit of grandness to the song before the vocalist comes in. And then you obviously get to the vocalist. Now, again, the track is featuring James LaBrie, which he has been in 2 previous tracks previously, which he basically led the whole thing, and the actual singer of the band wasn't really there in the slightest. In this song, the lead vocalist is actually in it. She's still basically in the background as the guest of the song, even though it's her band. She is the guest of the song. And James LaBrie is the lead vocalist, but he is the guest of the song. It's really stupid. But it has great melody to it. His voice and the band just have such a melody to it, and then it kind of keeps changing, and then it kind of has a very sort of kind of escalation, basically just not in sound or volume or anything, just escalation to the tempo, just to give it more of a groove. But the whole verse has a great rhythm to it, and then a bit of a groove to it as well at times. Halfway through the verse, you actually get to the actual vocalist, the real one, um, the lead vocalist of the band. So she comes in, and because it's the first time I actually hear both contrasting, it actually works really well, because previously it's just been her in her band, or the special guest basically leading the whole thing. But this kind of shows the great contrast between James LaBrie and the lead vocalist, because he took the first half of the verse, and she's now taking the second half of the verse. And she sounds incredible. And with the rhythm that he's just done, nothing's changed. She is basically doing the rhythm that he does. And she does it remarkably well, and she sounds amazing. So you can actually kind of hear how she sings in James's song, and she can actually do same stuff that he can. Because previously it was like, maybe she just can't do it, maybe her voice doesn't suit it. Here, her voice really does suit it. Some may say it's actually better because she does do it extremely well. I know James LaBrie's going to have loads of fans because he's blooming Dream Theater, but she does it very well. And then it comes to the chorus, and then the chorus just has such a flow and rhythm to it. And James leads it, and the actual vocalist is actually backing him, which is again silly, but she kind of interweaves through the background underneath him as he kind of does the on top vocals. The second verse, they're both kind of harmonizing for the first half, and it's a completely different rhythm, but eventually she does kind of disappear and leaves James just to do it by himself because it's his band. Oh, wait a minute. It gets really confusing. But it's his song, I guess. I don't know. And yeah, he leads it, then it gets back into the chorus. I'm not sure if she's there for this second part of the chorus, actually. But it does the typical breakdown that they keep doing, where it goes to the kind of acoustic and everything. And again, it's mostly just him again. And then it leads to a kind of acoustic solo. It's just acoustic leads and everything, just being very quiet and subtle and everything, just doing some leads. And then you get to the actual solo, which when it comes in, it's just starts with a soar, and then it's just kind of soaring, and then it kind of keeps going on. And then it kind of just does that kind of hammer on, pull off kind of lead out of the solo. It doesn't last overly long. I wanted more, really, because it had that great soars and that it was doing with amazing tone, and it just doesn't last because it sounded so big and awesome. It would have just been good if he just kind of kept that there. And then after that, it's just a bit more of an aggressive, not aggressive, it's just Last Union style of aggression, just a bit more power, basically, to come after the solo with the male vocalist and everything. Then you just get that chorus again, harmonized with the James LaBrie as well as the main vocalist just underneath. And that's pretty much the song. So I think the previous song was also kind of epic, just like this one, but this one with the long intro and then the kind of acoustic into the lead solo, and with the two vocalists being together, and then the rhythm of it and everything makes the song sound a bit kind of epic because the rhythm's so nice and well done and well structured, and the flow of it's amazing, and then the two singers coming together, it's quite well done. But again, James LaBrie kind of leads it. So that is basically it for the band. So one of the things I saw when basically finding the band was on YouTube, you have three pieces of music video. You have President Evil. So I thought, okay, so it's a band with a male vocalist that sounds pretty good. Let's listen to another single. So then I went to A Place in Heaven, and then it was like, okay, this is kind of good. At this point, I have no idea that he's not even the vocalist because I've heard two singles that have two music videos to them with the male James LaBrie, and then there was a third song out, which was the radio edit of Taken, and then it was like, oh, this song now features a female. She's really good. I wonder what band she's in. So I looked it up, and then it was like she's the vocalist. I was like, oh crap. So that's the annoying thing. Because this is a new band and you come and see it, and if people didn't know James LaBrie very well, they would just think this is the actual singer. Then when the album comes out, they're going to be amazingly surprised with what they're getting. And if you look on their Facebook as well, it says who's in the band. So band members, and then it says who the singer is and everything, and then the rest, and then it says James LaBrie, special guest. It's like you're including him as band members, and you even have to put him in as special guest. And he's like, are you kidding me? And they're just shoving him in. They don't know what special guest is. If you look on YouTube at the music videos, they're around 10K something. But then one video which does actually feature the actual vocalist, because they did a fourth one, is the first track, Most Beautiful Day. And that has about 900 views. And it's just ridiculous, because no one's really come in to actually hear, oh, Last Union actually does sound good. It's just like, if people do know James LaBrie, they listen to the song, it's like, oh, this is all James LaBrie. Don't know what the singer sounds like. I don't know if she's actually good and the sound is actually good overall, because you don't hear it. So it's poorly done. And even though the songs are good, President Evil, as well as Taken and A Place in Heaven, it's just kind of irritating that it doesn't actually feature the main vocalist. And then some things get quite formulaic, even though it's a progressive band and they do keep changing sounds and everything, and some songs have a lot to them. They keep kind of going from one chorus can be melodic, and then one chorus could be, one verse is melodic, then the second verse to heavy, and then after the second chorus it goes acoustic and piano, and then it kind of keeps following that repetition. And because yes, the song has a lot of differentials, but then each song keeps following the same structures of changing the song, which makes it formulaic, which is a bit irritating. And then you get some high energy stuff, which you kind of need with Last Union, but the high energy songs are very basic, and then they take the structure out, which is a little irritating. And then you have Most Beautiful Day. That first verse is dreadful, with the male vocalist just completely over the top of the female, but the female's over the top of him. So you get two main vocalists both singing at the same time, two different things, and it makes a complete mess. Some of the solos can be a little short. Some of them are fantastic but cut off. And then some are just downright amazing. And it's just like, well, why can't you do that in other places? So if I were to rate this album, it's very good. Like this lead guitarist that has some great solos, but in other times not so great. And in the odd song, he doesn't even do a solo, or a very, very short one. And then for 3 blooming songs, you don't even get the lead vocalist. It's like they're ashamed of her and she's not good enough, and they just want James LaBrie, who is not the band. He is a special guest who's supposed to just give a different flavour to it, but no, he takes the whole thing. So the overall band's great. The lead vocalist is great. But then they have James LaBrie in lots of songs. Then they had the problem with the first track with the male vocalist. Then some songs are very simple, like 18 Euphoria follows a very simple structure. And then some have brilliant structure, but then some of the brilliant structures, the next song follows another brilliant structure, but it's actually following the same structure of the song that just kind of came before it. So it gets formulaic. And then it never gets proper aggressive high energy and everything. So, because of all of this, it's a very talented band which has a great vocalist and great guitarist. But with everything they get good and do well, with the great structures where everything changes and one verse never even remains the same for a fair few of the songs, there is a lot of flaws. And because of that, my rating is probably going to be 7.8. It's definitely above average, by sure. Like, I would be stupid to say it's just a 6 above average. And then a 7 is just, it's good. It is better than good. And it's better than just halfway good, which would be the 7.5. It is leading up to very good. But there's some things about it which kind of just slow it down to boring. And then things that kind of irritate me with James LaBrie, even though I do like him as a vocalist. I just think they use it so badly, and it just irritates me when I kind of hear it because I'm not hearing the actual vocalist. Then some songs are basic in structure, then some songs there is loads of structure going on, which makes the song interesting. But when you listen to the whole album, track after track, they keep following that similar pattern, which is genius. But because they keep following it, each song then starts kind of sounding similar, which then gets boring, even though they keep changing the songs up. So it starts becoming repetitive. If you take songs out by themselves, it's fantastic, but then as a whole, it starts becoming a bit of a chore to get through. And it is really disappointing that that happens. But that is the case. A 7.8. It's a good album, and it's pretty damn good. But it has a fair few flaws. And there's some kinks that they need to work out. But it is a great show of what they got, and I'm really excited for what they can do next. The album cover looks amazing. So that is pretty much it. I do have something for Christmas. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get it out on Christmas or not, because Christmas is Christmas, so I may be doing something the whole time. But I do have a Christmas special that I will be putting out. So you got that to look forward to. But that is it for now. So until then, I'll see you guys later. Bye.